Morning, boys and girls. You are joining me on a very fresh but very crisp and very clear Christmas morning. I hope you're all having a good Christmas. Unfortunately, due to the UK being once again on pretty much a lockdown, that coupled with the fact my partner is unfortunately at work on Christmas Day, I've got the day all to myself. So I'm taking advantage of that and I'm taking my doggies. Where is she? There's one. And there's number two. Taking him for a Christmas Day walk. Mina over there is about to be given the best Christmas present of her life. A big stick. You on this? Ready? Oh, no. That's pretty much all she does. No idea at all how to retrieve. I'm afraid Thor still can't be trusted off the lead yet. His recall is non-existent. So I'm well aware there's been a gap in content recently. Unfortunately, real life getting in the way, both job, with the COVID, etc, etc. I have been working on stuff in the background, and I figured, given that it's Christmas Day, it might not be the most interesting video in the world, but I'll show you my progress so far on the project I'm working on. So, without further ado, welcome to part 6 of setting up the blacksmith shop. So, I've had a few things arrive in the post, and this is where we're up to with the assembly and setup of it. Let's have a little run through. So up first, we've got this thing. This is a Reboot RBC 5000L plasma cutter. It's 240 volt, it's rated to about 12mm thickness steel, give or take at about 50 amps. And I must admit, I'm pretty excited to give this thing a try, because I've never plasma cut anything in my life, but I figure this is going to be an awesome addition to the workshop and make cutting out those strange shapes much easier. Unfortunately, it hasn't come with a plug, and on the circuit box here, I've got the electrician coming to come and install a 30 amp circuit with a welding socket, probably mounted somewhere on the wall here or here, haven't quite decided yet. And the idea is the plasma cutter is going to be sitting somewhere up here behind the drill press, or possibly up alongside it. Then up next we have this, which is a sandblasting cabinet. I've not bored you with the building of this thing, it's fairly self-explanatory, 4 sides, a bottom, a top, and you obviously just bolt it all together. I did have one of these laying around, which is a water and oil filter. However, I think I'm going to swap this one out to a simpler solo water filter. This isn't really necessary for the sandblasting side, and it's a bit cumbersome. That plus the pressure dial here sits on the side, and where I'm going to be installing this thing, that's not going to be particularly useful, so yeah, this is a temporary measure at the moment, that'll be gone soon. And then finally, we've got this beast, which is a 100 Liter Air Compressor. Now, ideally, with air compressors, for pieces of equipment such as these, you really want to go as big as you can, and 100 litres is kind of on the smaller side. However, I'm going to be stalling it directly underneath the table here, so I'm going to have to get rid of all this junk here and pull out the shelf I installed. I think I'm probably going to have to cut through this bar here and then weld it back in place in order to install it underneath the table there. But yeah, it's been thoroughly measured in order to make sure it fits. The handle will be removed, that's not going to be necessary. But like I say, it's 100 litres, it's rated for 14.6 CFM, and it runs off a 3 horsepower 230 volts. I'll be able to plug that into the mains, just on a standard UK 3-pin socket. Now it is direct drive, which means it is going to be loud. However, I've got a solution for that as well. So that's a rundown of the equipment I've bought. Next is going to be the sort of phase 2 of this workshop. Obviously I'm fairly limited for space and I'm fairly sort of full up in here. So where on earth am I going to be installing all this? Well, now that it's the following morning, I will explain it to you. Basically, up against the wall of the garage and the fence here, I'm going to be building a workbench. I want it extending all the way across, following up to the end of this concrete block here. And I'm toying with the idea of putting a shelter on it, so there'll be a slanting roof coming down so it extends all the way over the door as well, so I'm not getting wet when I'm coming in and out. Now, unfortunately last night, I didn't get a wink of sleep for absolutely no reason at all. This morning, it's been absolutely chucking it down, and it's silly o'clock in the morning. So first thing I'm going to do is go and get a McDonald's breakfast, and then I'm going to go and purchase a load of wood. So let's do that. Well, I'm back from the shop, and wood has been purchased. Time to crack on with the build, I reckon. First thing first, I need to clear all this out. Something extremely satisfying about when you're tired, just throwing things around. It's like having a justified tantrum. Christ. Woo! Well, that's a fair bit better. Need to get this hook out of the way in order to put in the first pillar. Oh, finally. So with the hook out of the wall, the first thing I'm going to be doing is putting a pillar in this corner and along the side of the door in this side here. Now along the top of the roofing you can see this white part here sticks out, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this section in the wood so that it runs up flush up to the felt roof lining there. Having measured it up, it's exactly 2.4 metres up to the felt, and thankfully the posts I've bought, which are fence posts, are exactly 2.4 metres long, so it should just mean I have to cut out like a sort of L section along here. So let's do that. Well, so much for exact measurements. As you can see, it slightly sticks up over the top of the felt, so I'll just have to nip 2 centimetres or so off the top as well. But yeah, I just need to measure in this L section so that it sits flush up against the wall there. Just about reach. Okay, right, let's chop that to size. Not a word. Well, there is part 1. All done and bolted to the wall. Next is going to be moving on to part 2, so I'll skip ahead once I've done that. There we go, there's the second one installed. I think the next part is I'm going to be installing the leg that goes up here, which will be the top of the workbench. So, same process, but let's get on with that. Boom. Now the crossbeam, boom. Just like that. You know what would be really great right now? To be working underneath a shelter. Go away. Well, with one side done, what do you say we move on to the other side? So what I've done is, using one of the pieces of wood, I've measured out how far away I need this to go. Just due to the way this is sort of lined up, it's not perfectly square from the wall to the fence, so I'm having to kind of botch it together. But yeah, I've basically bought some of these fence post fixtures, and the idea is I'm going to be drilling into the concrete, and I'm going to be using a 2-part concrete anchor epoxy in order to secure them with some bolts. I've got 3 of them, so it'll be for the bottom of each of these 3 legs, but just obviously on the mirror side. So, let's get to drilling. There we go, there's all 3 fence post holders drilled in place. Now I've just got to remove the bolts, allow them to dry a bit, try and get all the dust out, and then I've got to epoxy them in place. And hopefully they'll dry before it rains again. I'll probably end up putting a cover on them. Scrap that, I'm going to do a dry fit up first, so I'm not going to epoxy it yet, I'm just going to put the wooden posts in place and see how we go. Thinking about it, I might not bother epoxying it at all, because really, this structure is going to be pretty heavy, and all I've got to worry about is lateral motion, not so much the idea of this thing being uprooted, so I'll see how we go. Like I say, I'll put all the fence posts in place, drill it all together, and then if I decide to epoxy it later, I can do. So I've just realised I've made a mistake on this side. I want the horizontal coming across to be sat on top of this post rather than this one. So I need to chop this square off here, put the horizontal in, bolt that down, and then bolt this one into the horizontal this way. Perfect. So here's where I'm up to so far. In terms of the workbench, I still need to put the horizontal across the back, but I'm probably going to do that towards the end, as I won't be able to get the ladder out from where it is, and I need that there in order to be able to put the top beams in. So I think next I'm going to be working on this corner post here, so it's time to measure it up against that one and cut it to size. If you're bored of watching me saw wood, it's because you haven't liked this video. So get on with it, otherwise I'm going to keep chopping. He says, fail. Now what? Well, you're joining me up here on the roof. So far, I've got the far end one and this one here secured in place. The two in the middle, I'm leaving loose for the time being, because once I get the corrugated plastic, I need to know exactly where to put these so that it'll be on the hump of the ridge, if you like. It'll make sense when I'm putting it up, you'll see what I mean. But yeah, that's where I'm going to be pausing for today, because I haven't got the roof yet. You might have noticed on the side of the workbench here, I've added a crossbeam. I will be adding some more in sort of the top corners just to give this frame a bit more rigidity, hopefully stop the wobble that it's got at the moment. That along with if and when I bolt it into the floor. But yeah, that's a project for another day at the moment. But all in all, I'd say that's not bad for a day's work. Well, it's about a week later and the Sparky has been. He's fitted this 16 amp socket on a 30 amp breaker. And as a result, we now have power. Exciting times. Well, we'll leave the video there, guys, so take it easy, and we'll see you in the new year. Bye-bye!